accept?
I will entertain a motion to accept.
I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Against? Passed. Presentation of bills and accounts.
I move we accept the bill as accounts as presented.
I'll second it.
Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Cooper Lake improvements. Wait for Judy to get back. Cooper Lake.
Okay, I'm on the agenda for the council's finance committee, I should be, it was referred, should have been referred last night as communication to the finance committee for the bonding that we discussed and approved last month.
That's when?
The 20-something of January, I don't know, it's usually, January is an odd month with the council finance meetings, because usually the finance meeting is right after, the same night as our board meeting. But I think because the January council meeting was postponed a week because of New Year's, I think it's messed up a little bit.
Somewhere around.
And also the chairman is out of the country.
Well, there you go.
And so he won't be back to the 20th, so I think they moved it a week later.
Right, so it's
between the council being a week later and him being.
Somewhere on the 22nd is what you're saying.
something like that, and I will confirm when it is. And then, so it should, hopefully we get approved, it should be before the full council in February, so we should be.
Okay, we submitted the schedule to DEC.
I have the letter written, but I haven't
Okay.
actually had time to, my goal would be to get it out there tomorrow. We've been a little busy. That's okay.
We haven't heard from them at all.
No, they haven't bothered me, so I didn't, I had the letter drafted and I want to look it over. And I actually want Greg to read it first to make sure that, he's in agreement with.
And they're are they doing the geological stuff
Yes,
now,
we're-
or even through the cold weather, or?
No, they work even today. I get emails every day about their progress. It's amazing. They are tell me what holes they've dug. So they're in about their 4th week, yeah. They're working every day. They went down 50 feet someplace today, as planned. By 6 o'clock, he sends me an email every day. That they're up there. So, everything. Do you want to just, we have a new council liaison?
Sure.
Jeffrey, right? Jeffrey Morrell, this is Dennis Croswell, our president. Harold,
Come up and meet everybody.
yeah.
Hi. So what's your name, Jeffrey?
Jeffrey Morrell.
Okay, great.
I'm Harold Sullivan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Bob Nichols.
Al Alberts.
And Al's not a board member. Al's our business manager. Or he's our secretary, he takes the minutes. Bill Corden is our attorney. And Jane Caggiano is our consultant engineer.
How you doing?
And I think you know the matter problem. You might know.
Good to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Where
we're,
you live? Main Street. Oh, Main Street.
Oh, Lasbury.
Ah, okay. Oh, yeah, neighbors.
We have water.
Yes.
Don't
for now.
Don't brag, you do.
Hey,
But it's not free.
that could change on a dime.
Yes.
So that's it with Cooper Lake then.
That's all I have, yes.
Okay.
Let's move it along.
Yeah. 587 Roundabout.
We had a meeting yesterday with DOT. Dennis, I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought it was a pretty good meeting.
Yeah, they were receptive to the concept of shrinking the impact area for the water changes.
Good.
They actually were looking to turn the whole water project over to us. They really don't want to
They don't
deal
wanna do
with
it.
the design and stuff.
They don't
And
want to do it. They don't wanna
Dennis
do it.
Lario said, no thanks, it's too big of a project, too complicated for us to be doing water and someone else doing sewer and you guys doing the roadway, so it went probably as well as could be expected.
Their chief engineer, I mean, the boss was Caroline, the woman that was from DOT.
Okay.
She's his boss, and he's a design engineer, and he still has a conflict with the sewer on Broadway, and he's not particularly upset that we're not going to be redoing those water lines. But our job is not to solution all his problems. And so, but I think with Dennis looking at it and Ralph was at the meeting, I think somehow we'll figure that all out. You know, the conflicts that we have are limited. You know,
Yeah, I mean, they were not opposed at all, they were actually somewhat agreeable
Yeah.
to the process, and so the next step was that DOT was gonna send Dennis Larios
that's all been done.
maps,
Yeah.
and then
They were
Dennis
gonna
was gonna go
exchange,
back,
right.
send stuff back to him so that he can refine his maps in regards to our impact area.
I have to get some specs together and give them to Dennis so he can provide them to them on transition couplings. They didn't even know that it was possible to hook new, smaller diameter pipe to larger, you know, that's just not their wheelhouse, and she said that. You know, her particular one, you know, she's a supervisor and doesn't really get into the design. So,
And so the council's bond stuff is also including,
yes, that also should have been referred, and that should have been referred. There were two separate letters that I sent to Jim.
do we need to do something as a motion for any of that or not?
We'll need a motion for that before the council passes it as a bond resolution, I believe. But so I would
So we have a
jump in
meeting to
here.
go.
We have a meeting in between, and I would suggest we hold off on that simply because we'll have a better idea of the amount,
The cost.
the cost. Right now, we have a 1.5 million, and we're hoping it'll be lower. That was it.
Okay.
That was all.
They still want the money up front, don't they?
By June.
Yes, June.
By June. But Dennis was very, very aggressive about that point. He just said, you know, here's the real rub for us. We have to give you all that money, and we on the full amount, you know, that you're not going to spend for maybe all of it, the balance of it, for 2 years potentially, and we're paying interest on that right away, on the whole amount. And that's not normally how we do business. And she said we didn't really understand that. And so she was going to ask if maybe we could, but she said, I'm not hopeful, but she seemed receptive to
Yeah,
the
she was
point.
receptive of that
And
concept
understood.
of the fact that, and I'm assuming if they're smart enough, they're taking all our money, they're taking all of the city sewer money, they got it in an account. I'm assuming it should be an interest-bearing
And they got
account.
every other municipality's accounts.
You know, meanwhile, we're paying interest and they're getting, you know, we're paying money and they're getting
That was exactly how he phrased
profit.
it
And
too.
it's like, you know, wait a second, it doesn't make, you
They're
know.
not getting much, but
No, but.
And we're not paying much.
We're not paying much, but the fact that
Right.
we're paying money
I understand.
to sit in an account for up to 2 years, and they're benefiting off of our money sitting there for 2 years, just doesn't seem right. I mean, it's one of those things where I almost feel like writing the governor's office or
Is this
whatever.
money,
Yeah.
is this money to be held in escrow,
It's what they call a force account.
which means they can draw from it?
They do, as a
My
contractor.
question, do they have to have, are they going to give us a voucher for this money with an explanation as to where it's being spent and how?
You will be signed a betterment agreement and that you will be reviewing shortly, and that's all spelled out in there. It will be.
What do you expect? You think they'll give us vouchers for the expenses that
No.
that's withdrawing it?
No,
I don't think so either.
no, but we will get a detailed accounting of how that money is spent, and any money remaining at the end of the project, we would get back. Dennis even raised the point, suppose the estimates are it's 1.5 million for argument's sake, and the bids come in at $1 million. You hand us that 500,000 back right
Yeah.
away? And
That's what they said, well, no.
if she said yes,
Why are
he
you
said
holding our
no.
$500,000 we're paying interest on?
I don't understand why they even need it anyway, but you're a municipality. It's not like you're a private contractor.
This all comes from they claim it comes from the comptroller's office, and their hands are tied.
This sounds like we go to the bank and say that's our rule.
Well, I mean, you'd be arguing with the New York State comptroller, which I'm
Which you
sure
know you
is.
can't do, right?
Well, I'm sure you can.
It's just, I'm being facetious, but
I'm sure you can.
it just seems silly.
Sure, it's gonna be.
Well, yeah. It's very frustrating to
Expensive.
deal with the financial ends of it.
Right.
I mean,
I mean, we are lucky in that the two engineers that we're dealing with for DOT are nice people, competent people, and she spent a lot of time explaining how the account works and what the process was. They said, well, we've never had any experience. I mean, Ralph and Alan certainly deal with that all on a regular basis. The city does. Well, we don't deal with their accounts and their funding at all, ever. So she was very, very good at that.
Yeah, and obviously, they have no control over any of that
Oh, no.
financial stuff either. They're the tech, the design side of it.
Right, now they're,
You know, they're probably just as frustrated with our concerns as we are, but.
yes, so. Yes.
Okay, the SCADA system.
Still waiting on DOT. I mean, I'm still waiting on New York State DOH, excuse me, DOH.
Waiting for DOH approval.
Yes, yes. I did get something back from Brock. He needs a clarification on one point, which I will have to send him. I just haven't done it yet, so that'll happen.
I mean, the other thing was we were waiting for the elevation stuff,
That's all
and
done.
that's been all certified.
That's all been certified, and that was the question he had. On one of those that I sent him, he had a question, and I just need to get Chris to clarify it. We're good to go.
And then from there, we go, once we get approval, we go out to bid,
Yes,
right?
yeah, because the designs are done. Yeah.
And did he give you any indication about how timeframe there at all?
What, the bids?
No,
The installation?
The timeframe for approval from DOH.
DOH, once he gets the elevation, he's already looked over the plans. They're good with them. They just need.
So he's pretty close.
He's done.
Okay.
All
so-
except this question.
Okay,
yeah.
so once that question gets,
Sure.
okay.
Yeah. And they did the same thing, you know, they had vacation sometime at the end of the year, beginning of the year.
The Binnewater UPS installation project.
Everything's been delivered, the equipment that we purchased, the UPS unit itself has been delivered, we've been invoiced. Alan, have we paid that yet? Are we paying it this month?
It is, we're waiting for a voucher.
That's right, Kevin told me that, for Mitsubishi. It's been delivered, and we're probably a couple of months behind because, you know, Jim's behind, but that's up to Tom to move him along.
So everything's there now, it's just we're waiting for the electrician to do the install.
There's some other equipment that has yet to be delivered that's part of the shop drawing submittals. I think the shop drawings are pretty well caught up, are they not?
Right, so, yeah, the
There's a
shop
couple
drawings are all
things.
caught, it's just a matter of getting some of the side equipment, louvers and things like that. The main equipment is there on site. He said he's 3 weeks behind schedule, so he was,
Erased?
Yeah.
or eraser, yeah, his original schedule was to be done by February 19th, so you gotta add 3 more weeks,
But,
plus or minus.
Is he actually doing work up there right now, though? No, he hasn't
no,
done
he-
anything.
you know what, he's been dealing with, you know, the generators and the electrical issues, and, you know, the weather impacts him as well. But his prognosis, his schedule that he submitted was well in advance of the contract deadline. So he's really not in violation of the contract at this point. He's way ahead of schedule.
So when does he anticipate starting his work, or
About 3 weeks, I think.
3 weeks from
Yeah,
now?
3
Yeah.
weeks from now.
And then he's gonna have it finished in a relatively, in a couple weeks' time, I think. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. Work is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It's moving, it's close.
Transmission main rehab.
That's moving along. I just opened plans, I got them a couple of days ago. I just opened plans that Tom sent me for a couple of different options for how we want the valving at the foot of Binnewater Hill. And so Debbie and Derek and I will look them over, and then we'll have a meeting with Tom and kind of make some decisions. And then from that's really, and then they can finalize their designs once they know what options we prefer. You know, we certainly will discuss that with them.
Lagoon sludge removal.
They had an equipment malfunction that they repaired, and we're back on site just as the cold weather sucked down on us. And so they're kind of shut down until it warms up a little bit. But their equipment is still there, so when they get the weather window that they can work in, they'll be back. It seems to be successful. It seems to be, the process seems to be working. Seems to be working.
And is there an expected completion when they'll get everything moved over to the,
There may be, I don't know what it is. I will get back to you with that. I don't know.
I mean, what they're doing right now is moving
Material.
everything out of Lagoon 1
Into the
that.
freeze. Yeah.
We actually have cold enough weather for some of the
Yeah.
stuff to actually freeze for
We
the
need
first time.
weather to get better so we can finish it. Now we need the weather to go way downhill,
Yeah.
fast.
It's probably the first time in years that we've had cold enough weather for them to actually be operating the way
We
they've
could
been
have gotten rid
designed.
of all that sludge last week.
Yes. And some was in there. I mean, there was stuff in there. So yes. And the drainage there and the percolation through that freeze-thaw lagoon is better than he thought it was going to be, because of the high clays in the soils there. And, you know, he's able to move more sludge at a time than he thought. He was supposed to, you know, you can only bring it up to the overflow, but it's doing pretty well, so. Once he gets that weather window, he should be able to finish that up.
Going along here, huh?
I can't believe it.
Correspondence.
Everybody's cold.
I have nothing. My report, I promise you. I would
Before we
give you-
continue on, can we make an effort to say the good work that's been done by the crew?
Absolutely.
Resolution.
You bought them all new coveralls yesterday. You don't know that.
Very, very big of you.
They probably needed them.
We were up on Lucas Avenue, and I'm looking, and you know, this one's got the elbow ripped out of their thermal coveralls, and this one's got the knee ripped out. I'm like, that's not really very thermally efficient. So we bought them.
Where did you get them from?
Well, I ordered them from Granger, actually. We were getting coveralls from Ulster Uniform for years. I got better pricing at Granger, and most of the guys, this is kind of really strange, but they like the bibs as opposed to the coveralls because they have more freedom of movement. I ordered them yesterday, and they were on downstairs today. Because Granger is, you know, they got a facility in Newburgh. We have an account, internet, and it was there today. It's kind of amazing.
I guess the board would like to acknowledge all the
Yes.
efforts,
Yeah.
hard work, dedication of the staff on all the water main breaks
Yep.
that they've been called out on.
So you want a resolution?
Do we need a resolution
I
or
would
just
that
an
would be nice.
acknowledgement?
I would do a resolution, then you can hand it out to people.
That's cool, that's
The
fine.
board has
Yeah.
approved this, and it's a nice thing to do.
I have to say, one of the good things I've seen is that they're coalescing well, quite nicely as a team, and there's like a core of 4 of them that really know what they're doing, really work cooperatively, and really can figure it out on the fly.
That's good.
So they're doing well, that's really good.
Do you want to actually make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we have a resolution thanking the hard work of the crew during this bad weather extremity.
And a
I'll
second?
second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Great, yeah, thanks
Yes, thank you.
Bob for
They'll appreciate
bringing
that.
that up. Superintendent's report.
I promised you an update, and I have it, and I can hand it out if people want it, but essentially, the update reflects that we have 5 main breaks in December, we made 2 taps, and we did 125 markouts. That's the part that, because of all the frozen meters and everything they were doing, but here's, if you want an updated copy, here it is.
You know, I know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, you know, Al needs one for, I mean, I already, Al, that's already unshared, that updated copy.
I can just write it in too if you
Sure.
have. It's just, that one, the December thing for water main maintenance meters, right? And
Yep.
distribution?
Yep, where I had all the asterisks.
Yeah.
It
Want to
was-
write them down, starting new
New
sets?
sets were 0, frozen was 4, stopped were 4, radios installed was 1, main repairs were 5, markouts were 125, and we made 2 new taps. That was it. Joe just was, it was more important for him to keep on top of the meters.
The 2 new taps were,
Renewals of services, one was on Franklin Street, and the other one was on Greenhill. Greenhill Avenue.
that was a new one or was that?
No, they're renewals of existing services. One was at 230 Greenhill, the other was at 33 Franklin.
Do you normally get breaks in the winter, and we're just getting more because of the very frigid weather?
You get breaks in the winter, but we don't get very many because we don't pump our system, it's gravity.
Right.
So it's a constant pressure, whereas town of Ulster, much smaller, typically has far more main breaks than we do. But this weather, this has been phenomenal. It's, as the frost goes in the ground, it's down about 24 inches now. And so as it hits, the ground starts to shift, the mains start to break, you know.
And how deep are the mains typically?
4 or 5 feet. And what we're finding is, and I have to say, this is probably something that the city should address. I know the town is looking to address it, the town of Ulster. Central Hudson is coming in, they're putting in new mains all over town. And the easiest place to go in is right on top of the water main, because it's previously disturbed. You know you're not gonna find rock, you know it's not gonna hard to dig, you're gonna go right down, and that's where they are. So that took us, and so we're paying, our ratepayers are paying the price for that. Because instead of being, in order to fix a water main, you gotta get down on the side of it, and you put a sleeve around the crack, you gotta get under it on both sides. And so if the gas main is here, Bucky can't dig straight down, and then on the side, he's gotta dig over here, then he's gotta move his machine and dig over here, then the guys have to hand dig under the gas main. You can only expose 5 feet of it at a time. So it's just a lot more difficult to make our repairs. There's a couple of places, I don't know how we're gonna accomplish it if we have to, because they've left one gas main in service, put in another gas main, and there's no
So
bucket, there's
they
no
don't,
room.
they don't remove the
Not
old,
always, I mean.
they don't replace it where the old one was?
Not all the time, and they have a protocol, and I don't know how that goes, but I know in Prince Street, for example, there's 2 gas mains that are live, a new one, an existing one. Over us, the sewer's in there, obviously you need a sewer in the street, and between everything in the street, so I would love to see them submit plans where they're gonna go and somebody say yes or no. And I don't know if that's even possible.
They have eminent domain right away.
Well, so the Public Service Commission requires them to do a certain amount of
Yeah.
gas replacement projects. You know, they provide the city with a map of the streets that they're going to dig up. But I'm not sure how specific of drawings we get in terms of exactly where they're going and what. I mean, but I think that contacting DPW and seeing, you know, talking to Joe and having them so each year Central Hudson comes in to get the excavation permits for the whole season.
Right.
So, you know, getting in copies of what they're submitting with our permits, and if there's stuff that we should be asking in our permits that we're not.
I mean, they should not be on top of any of our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Should be off to the side, so at least we can make the repair more efficiently.
Yeah, so. that's
They're also
something-
not responding to markouts in a timely fashion.
Yeah.
It's taking them 5 and 6 hours, 4 hours on Town of Ulster to get to
Or do we need to write them
I don't know
a
if good it would be.
letter or anything, just putting them on notice that they shouldn't be doing that? I mean, again, it's probably the contractors, right? It's not even Central Hudson.
It's their contractors, and it's, they're an investor-owned utility, so, their first obligation is to their shareholders. So their markout team is one person on call all the time, and his territory is both sides of the river, and it goes from Fishkill to Catskill. So in this weather, you can imagine, that poor young man he was busy. And Kevin's a very nice guy. He called us up, he said, it's gonna be 2 hours, I'm just leaving Fishkill. And I got 3 stops before you. So, they just need to, and maybe it's just the season, but that's
Well,
my complaint.
you don't want them to keep putting gas lines on top of the
Yeah, that was-
water.
Absolutely not,
I mean,
that's our major concern.
So if we could work out some way,
Yeah.
they have to get a permit. And if we could work out some way where they had to submit plans that were more specific, so you know where they're
Right.
going.
But they wouldn't be submitting them to us, they'd be submitting them to the city.
Well, if the city could share when they get them.
Oh, they would,
Okay.
I'm sure that we
Then
could all
that
jointly review them.
That may help you say, if it's going here, get in touch.
Move it over.
Move it over.
Right.
But again, it may not be that specific, it just may be a line down the middle of the street.
It's one of those things where, it's kind of a fine line where, we kind of have to allow them to do it.
Right.
We can have them have a street excavation permit, and, tell us in advance, they can't, we won't give permits if, the street was paved within the last 5 years. They have to, unless it's an emergency, they have to wait, because we don't want them to dig up a brand new street. So I'm assuming if we can do that,
Well,
we
if
can
you issue a
also.
permit, can you put a condition on the
Yeah.
permit that says
Right, that's why
that
it'd
the
be
main
interesting.
should not be,
Well, it would be interesting to see what's in there already. I mean, it may actually have some language that just may not be following.
And it may not be that the city has any personnel to enforce it,
Right.
or to
well,
monitor it.
true.
I mean, that may be the issue. You can tell them this is what the rules are, and it's not Central Hudson per se, it's their contractor, and they're getting paid by I'm sure by the job, and there's a bonus for finishing early.
And if we know where they're gonna be working when, do we have the staff capacity in the water department to send somebody over there to take a look at what they're doing?
We do.
You can make them, you can have a rule that says that they cannot be located within a certain area, and that for every day that they are So if they put it in and it's been there for 2 years, you fine them $100 a day and say, listen, we potentially could be faced with a fine here of many thousands of dollars because we put it in wrong. That can be done.
Judy, how long has this been going on? Has
For
it-
a long time. I mean,
So it's
it's,
just been
it's
something
getting
that-
worse, it's gotten worse now because of the accelerated pace at which they have to replace these mains. I mean, they're under a mandate from the state that they have to replace these aging cast iron gas mains, like ASAP. And there's so many percentage of their system they have to do every year. So they don't really have a choice either. And they'll tell you that. I mean, it's, you know, and that's why our rates are all going up. But, you know, their contractor is, you know, the ones, Mullen is pretty good. The guy, they're a Saugerties firm, they're pretty, we have a pretty good relationship with them. But, you know, unless we catch them and specifically tell them not to, we're not always there.
So one of the questions is developing a rule or regulation prohibiting it,
Yeah.
putting them on notice of the rule and
Future
regulation,
construction,
Right.
you could do that.
which we would need to develop a new rule and reg. One of the things I'd like to do is have a committee to go, and once we get through the crazy, it's on my wish list.
This is your
Look
rules
at the
committee.
rules and regs
Okay.
Yep,
and
I
update
think
them
it's a
and
good
stuff.
idea.
Okay.
But we, you know, I got a little note here about adding that
Okay.
sometime in the near future.
Okay.
And then on the city's excavation permits, just adding a reminder as a permanent condition that they should not be installed above the water lines.
And they shouldn't be installed above the sewer mains either.
Okay?
Yeah,
and
I
that's something
encourage Judy to talk to Joe.
I will.
You know, to try
Okay.
to get
Yeah.
the permit,
Right.
to see what rules
See,
and
And
regulations.
and I don't even know if there would be a
Yeah.
need to even, that's just a permit condition. I don't even think there's any regulatory thing
I-
on a permit condition. It's just a condition of the permit. It doesn't need a regulatory review approval process.
Have there been any gas line explosions with the old lines up around here?
Leaks but not exposed.
Nothing.
But I believe because there have been some within the state,
There must
that's
have
what
been- there must have been
prompted,
the city.
that's what's prompted this statewide mandate that all these utilities will get these gas mains replaced.
Because there's been a couple in the city where they've had some pretty serious explosions.
There's been some, Port Union was a big one,
Catskill.
Catskill was one,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion to accept the superintendent's report.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Bob, second.
I'll second it.
Joanne, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Executive session then, right?
Oh, just one other thing about
Yep.
Johnson Controls, I mean,
Yeah, I was gonna ask
I
you.
omitted it from the agenda inadvertently. I've kind of put them on a little bit of a hiatus while we're going through all this. They wanted to do the push-pull before Christmas, but we just didn't have the manpower, nor did I want our customers bothered, you know, the week between Christmas and New Year's and that kind of thing. We probably have had 12 or 15 frozen meters. The guys are pulling one right now, while we're out fixing a water main break. But that'll be, Ryan ran over, he'll get it done real quick. And so we wanna update our database before we do this push-pull and this testing, because we don't wanna test meters that are new. And obviously, we have a whole bunch of meters now that are new that we hadn't planned on making them. So, but we'll be back up by the end of the month. We'll have a schedule for when they're coming in and what they're doing.
And that next step is them to actually,
Test the 5/8 and the smaller meters, yeah. And then I have a list, and we have some decisions we need to make before then.
right, one of them was what meter we wanted to replace with, right?
That we do, and that,
Okay.
we made the decision in-house to go with the census for the push-pull. But if it shows that there is a larger, that there's a larger benefit to changing more meters and that there's a project there, we really need to look seriously at Neptune because there's a huge dollar difference between the two. And there's
So for this push-pull, we're gonna stay with
census.
census?
Because if the push, and Al and I talked about this a lot. If the push-pull shows that it's not cost-effective to change out all of these meters, that they're accurate, why would you want to put 120 of a foreign brand that we're not standardized on? Now, if the push-pull shows that changing out all the meters is warranted and it's cost-effective, then we can say, well, yeah, we'll have 125 or 130 census meters in the system, and the 7,000 others are going to be Neptune, and that's okay, because they all can read each other. We just didn't wanna have these little orphan island of odd meters that we don't have any experience with.
So when will we know this?
When?
Yeah.
I would think they can do the push-pull probably through February, and we'll have those results pretty quickly, and then we'll be able to
Make a decision.
make a decision. I mean, we've had Neptune in to talk to us, and we know that'll work. We told Census we'd give them an opportunity to come back and,
Rebid.
well, they just kind of convinced us that they're worth the extra money.
Oh.
But Neptune's given us, they really want this bid, they really want us, and they have a good product.
So you still need to go back to Census.
I shouldn't have to, because we've been to them 3 times and
Oh,
keep
okay.
getting lower prices, so I don't know how many times you gotta
You
keep
go
going
back,
back.
okay.
But we did, you know, we've been with them a long time, and we give them an opportunity. He thinks he's right on with Neptune, I'm like, yeah, you're 400 grand separate, you know, that's a big difference. So, we'll see how bad they want us.
And a lot of that is all contingent on what their
What the
audit-
testing
the
shows.
audit- Yeah, the testing and audit
Right.
results show.
So end of February, we'll have a.
We should have a better idea.
It's about the March meeting, we should.
Right, and that would be the time, if we're gonna talk about a change out, it's in the summer anyway. We shouldn't be doing this another time.
And the previous large meter,
I have the results, got them just before Christmas.
okay,
I have to make some decisions, we have to bring it to the board. There's some we got that we tested that they have broken valves and things, so we have to get them to replace those.
I was
and fix
confused
those.
on what you had presented to us back in maybe November.
I have final numbers.
Okay.
I just,
Some of
I'll,
the stuff that
at
you
the
had.
February meeting, I'll pull all this together and get them done.
Okay.
Al, before we're done, I've been out of the office, as you know, most of the day. What about your fee schedule? I know we talked about it.
Yeah,
I asked Al to put together a fee schedule for 2018,
Okay,
and I think there's a couple minor policy issues we want to maybe talk about.
well, that's,
Sit and just- One, previously, some of this is just informational, because, you know, meter install and removal, these are what the costs are. But there's a bad check policy that we'd like you guys to consider. And the way it's written here is any account submitting more than one NSF check for payment of water sewer bills will be flagged, a special condition code in Munis, which is our billing system, and payment by personal check from those accounts will not be accepted in the future unless the account holder name changes. And Al can explain how this came about. I mean, this all happens around tax time, when people are paying the bills before they go on taxes.
that's when the real problematic areas of NSF checks happen, because what it does, it affects the validity of our relevy. We accept a check and do the relevy based on the current database, and then after the relevy is completed, the check bounces. And so now that account is releviable, but the relevy's already done. So, and we've had a customer who has done this 2 years running, bouncing a check for relevy payments, and then what we have to do is scramble to get in touch with this customer directly and basically strongly recommend that they pay their account at that point in cash, in order to make it correct with their database, since that account was not relevied.
I mean, you charge them a fee.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Well, we
For-
charge a bad check fee
Fee,
to
yeah.
everyone,
Right.
yeah.
Is this a commercial account or a residential?
It's a landlord.
Yeah.
It's a landlord. What I want to tell you also is that because we've had this issue in the past, Jane and Al have pushed forward the end date when you have to have, if you're going to pay your unpaids in this office before we relevy by check, the cutoff date is like 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before the relevy.
Yes, we have already meant that
Right.
because we ran into the
Right.
issue quite frequently.
Now, the banking regulations.
So how many, I mean, what do you normally get versus what you get during releving?
That's cool. Death charge.
I didn't get the.
I mean, how many bad checks do you normally get on a quarterly basis, or?
Oh, I can say that we get approximately, 4 to 6 bad checks a month.
And during the re-levy or the pay-up time?
Well, during the re-levy, as I say, we've tried to forestall that by moving up the date of the deadline for the re-levy to allow time to get those checks back from the bank in time so that we can readjust the account. But as I say.
For the most part, they're pretty good about coming back in and making good on the bad check.
Well, in most cases, right.
If it's a non-re-levy time, you just unpost the account.
Yeah.
And
Which makes, right, which
Which
puts
is
the
easy.
money back on the account.
Right.
So that's,
Do we charge them the 10% penalty?
Oh, yeah.
oh yes, they get the late fee.
The late
Yeah.
fee?
That's
They
right.
don't, they're not successful in beating anything out.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really the re-levy part,
Right.
because we're not getting our money in whole from the city based upon
And,
that.
and the truth is that the banks are required to turn those checks around and notify you, and this particular account, this is 2 years run, it's taken over 2 weeks to
Well,
get that check back.
and I would say that customer is waiting right into the deadline
Yes,
to issue that check, so,
this customer knows what they're doing.
yeah.
Is this consistent with the one person all the time?
This one person's done it now 2 years running every
Well,
11.
then can't we make some kind of a rule saying that he can't pay by check anymore?
That's what
Well,
we're
that's what
asking
the
you to do.
proposal is.
That's the
what this
resolution.
policy-
The
that's what this
policy change
is.
would be anyone that gives us an NSF check, we won't take a check from you anymore.
Right.
More than one, we'll give everybody one,
Yeah,
and then after the second one, you're done writing
So
checks
it's
up.
2 strikes and you're out.
2 strikes and you're out.
correct.
Okay, so
Cash
do
or
we
money
need,
order or credit card going forward?
Right, yeah.
That's fine.
so do we need a motion right now, or are you looking for that?
I would, if
Well,
you,
unless you want to make it, I've put it on the fee schedule.
you wanna look them over and do
So,
it next month?
Okay.
If you want to just approve the fee schedule, including that, you can, or if you want to make it a
Is that
separate.
okay, Bill? Okay.
So you have copies
I
to
do,
send out? Okay.
I do.
Are there any other changes to this? Did you highlight changes?
Well, the-
I will,
He'll go over it.
I
Okay.
will go over it as you're looking at them. Let me know who doesn't have one.
I gave mine to Dennis, so you can throw one down here.
Bring it
I mean,
down.
you and I discussed it, and then it ran out the door
Thank you.
today.
Everyone have one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Want one, Jeffrey? You got another one back? Oh. Typically, you'll get a whole board packet.
So the 2 changes, the 2 asterisks.
Well, the asterisks are policy
Okay.
changes.
Okay.
The other changes there were some monetary changes.
Based on pricing changes.
Right, the pit risers, which are under the column of meters, new install. The pit risers that are now recommended by the meter foreman, which have a better design, being able to access, have increased in price, so we're increasing our price appropriately for the cost of the pit risers. And other than that, you'll see that under the miscellaneous, I have 2 columns, regular time and after hours.
Yes.
And so what we're doing is, in order to cover our financial liability of employees having to do this without enough advance notice to have to do it after hours, we are putting a fee on after hour.
So the after-hour fees are all new?
Not exactly.
Not exactly, but they're more clearly spelled out.
For the frozen meter, as an example, in 2015, the board passed a policy that basically said that if you have to change a frozen meter, regular time, it's the cost of the meter, the frozen meter charge plus $50.
Okay.
After hours, it was plus $100. I think Alice just clarified all that.
Yes.
So it's meter removal 50 and 100, and then the frozen meter charge is the same after hours.
So
It goes up.
basically, everything the after hours is just an additional
Yeah,
$50 for
Yes.
those.
correct.
Yes, correct.
Should we just make that a policy? As opposed to having a running,
You can if you prefer that, but having this makes it clear for the office staff to be able to, refer to right away, and a plumber comes in and says, okay, I'm gonna need, curb stop located, so on.
yeah, well, you can hand out whatever you want in
Oh,
regards to the
But if-
thing, but
for your
for us,
resolution?
for a resolution or policy, would it be simpler just to,
Oh, if we approve this, we're basically doing.
we're approving this
Yes.
fee schedule as opposed to, they can have a fee schedule based upon what the board approves in regards to a motion,
Yeah,
you know.
whatever you feel is good.
You can approve the whole fee schedule as one document if you wish.
Right, and then
Yeah,
that's
but
what
then
Harold
it
is
requires
suggesting.
him to come back, every time there's a change
copy if you
to the
want to see
schedule,
it.
you have to develop a whole other schedule and reapprove the schedule, as opposed to just.
No, you can always amend it.
The only thing I would say is, we're not gonna change these policies. The only things that might change would be as our costs change.
Cost of
Well, that's,
So
even
that
like the
would
pit
change.
riser, can we make instead of having, I mean, you can have your handout saying this is what the current charge is for a pit riser, but if we have a policy,
Well, you could say this is the current charge that could be subject to change
Right.
depending upon the cost.
Depending on cost.
but we as a board make a policy that says that the cost for a pit riser is whatever however you arrived at that. I mean, I'm assuming what you're saying is.
That's the real cost, that's
That's
the
the real cost.
That's the real
What
cost.
we need to do is, as a board, say the policy is that the cost is whatever the charge is to us.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can basically take that information from what you know
And adjusted
and
it.
adjust it
I-
day by day or week by week based upon
Sure.
how it changes, as opposed to you coming to me at the end of 2 months later and saying, oh, guess what, the pit riser prices went up another $20,
And that-
now I want to resubmit a whole new
Sure,
fee schedule.
that would leave it open for the flexibility of the market, which
fine.
makes sense,
If-
sure.
If I could suggest, just from kind of the public's point of view, I think that, having a posted fee schedule, on our webpage or in our brochure, that doesn't change for the year, at least can give some sense for folks that are developing new projects, that are planning on doing work on their houses, all of the plumbers out there that are kind of including these as part of the bills, a little bit of sense of, okay, well, I know what my 2018 fees are going to be. It does give a little bit more of a sense of, at least the water department knows what they're doing. If we kind of just say, well, what's the sense of having a fee schedule then if we can change it and we're gonna just willy-nilly, if the price goes up, we're gonna change it at $5 or go up 10. It does lead to a sense of, well, why do we even have a fee schedule then if it's just always going to be kind of an on-the-fly budgeting on this? So it's the other side of it. And I'm not saying that I disagree completely, I just
We
feel like-
never do change them. I
Right.
mean, they do stay pretty much current.
Yeah.
The only time where we're going to be a little more fluid in the numbers is if we have a big project coming in. And then usually I will call for 3 or 4 prices from people for the taps.
Right.
Because, I mean, the taps are the large taps. I mean, the little taps, $300, that's good.
Right.
It's, not gonna change. But if you want a 12 on a 12-inch main and an 8-inch tap, I'm gonna make sure when I'm gonna give you pricing.
Right.
And that's gonna be solid, but it may not be the $29.50 to be on, But that's fine. If it's for the year, it's pretty good. We don't pit risers, we haven't put one in a long time. And there's a new style, it's easier for our people to use, and that's the cost. And that's why that's a big increase. But, typically, we don't do a lot. The fees over here, we haven't changed in a long time.
Right.
And I asked Al to look at them because I knew some of our labor costs had gone up. And so, as an example, our previous policy that the board has is for any tap done on weekend and night, we had $160 for taps 2 inches and $240 in excess of 2 inches. And regardless of size, any ones that are done on a holiday, we had $400, and that got really complicated. And so, Al, this is simple. Whatever it costs, if you're doing it after hours, we're doing it. And if plumbers know that, the plumbers know that.
mean, it's really up to, depending upon what, I mean, I was just trying to make it simple in regards to coming back here every so often with a whole new fee schedule as opposed to just improving
No,
it by
yeah,
policy.
right, I understand
You guys
what
can
you're
decide
saying.
how
Sure.
up to date your schedule is. I mean, if it goes up $5,
We're not gonna do it.
that's your choice to sit there as,
Right.
an
as a-
administration
As a
issue.
matter of fact, the board did discuss this, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a resolution regarding the tap prices. That the tap prices would be based on the cost, what the current cost was, and when changes were necessary, it would be made.
Maybe it would be easier if we had a fee schedule that was for 2018, and I think all the miscellaneous, we're pretty solid on those.
Yeah.
The meter costs, we know our meter costs for 2018 because we've gotten pricing. The tap fees, we could list some of the smaller taps, the 3/4 and the 1s and the 2s and everything else, we could say pricing, you know,
I think
upon
that-
request.
I think that would be best.
And that way, because those are the ones that are gonna change, because we're gonna do one every 3 years.
Yeah, the
And this
small,
may
the
be 3
small
years old.
taps are the frequent,
Right. And
Yes.
then we can just go out and give those prices. And I think that would work for everybody.
Okay.
okay, so,
It would simplify this whole thing.
It would, because,
Someone would be like, oh, I want a 16 by 16 tap, that looks fine. Like, they have no idea what that.
no, they don't,
That
And,
number may not
you
be
know, some people
accurate.
don't know it's the main size first and
Right.
tap size second. And
I like that idea.
so
so do you want
you want us to revise, the only,
to, whatever you think is gonna work best?
what do you want to do? You want to revise it, or and just pass the check policy and the tap fee policy?
I'll be happy to revise it, sure.
Or can you pass it and then,
I'd like to be able to put this in effect
yeah, I agree with
Right.
you.
for the year, beginning
In
today.
January.
Right. Get something in place.
But I'll be happy to revise it according to the input that you've all given, and
How about we just, we'll amend this to reflect tap sizes,
yes,
3/4, from
Three-quarter.
3/4 to 1.5 inch. And that'll be it.
yeah. Mhm.
And the 1.5 inch is gonna, and 3/4, 1 and 1.5, and the 1.5, because it requires a saddle that goes around the main, those will be listed as 4 by 1.5, 6 by 1.5, but those don't change. And we have them downstairs. We have them in stock.
All of them, 12 by 1.5?
Yeah, all of them. And so next month we'll distribute the final.
Okay.
But we'll eliminate all the larger taps because those are where the.
You want us to pass the bad check policy tonight, though?
Would like you to adopt
Oh,
this.
yeah.
I would, yes,
Okay.
Yeah. And the tap.
In the tap fee
Yeah.
policy?
yes,
So we can do that now, and you'll come back with a
Yes.
modified fee schedule
sure.
next,
That's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
But he can put the fee schedule out, because he basically just.
That's not gonna change.
Yeah, he basically can put it out, he's just cutting it off.
We're just gonna cut it off and yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I need a motion to accept the bad check policy and tap fee addition policies as written on this?
Could we do the whole fee schedule as amended, as discussed?
Okay.
I don't know.
Including the bad check policy and
Right.
that.
Amendments.
Yeah, that would be the best way to do it,
That way we have it so we can start it.
As revised.
as
That's
revised.
fine. Okay, so I have a motion by Peg to that
Yes,
effect?
motion to-
Got that, Al? Second? Bob?
Okay.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so carried.
And that's it. That's all I have on it. Do you have anything for executive session? I don't. We're good.
We're all set then? Nothing for executive session?
I don't know. Unless I'm, forgetting something terrible, but I'll figure it out later.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Harold, second.
I'll second it.
Joanne, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
The shortest meeting.
You got a shorter one.
What's the
You got a shorter one back in the summertime.
And then
Schedule the ones, circle the ones